Howdy folks. So I know I just did a review of the Westone UM Pro 10s, but I returned those and I bought another pair of headphones, so I thought I might as well review them as well. And these are the Sennheiser Momentum in-ear headphones. They don't actually call them monitors. They just call them headphones, so I'll just call them. I'm going to probably call them IEMs anyway, just because it's easier to say. But they're not sold as monitors. They're just sold as just regular in-ear headphones. So this was what I bought to replace the Westone UM Pro 10s, and I took kind of a gamble on these because the last pair of Sennheisers that I had, I was really dissatisfied with. But I have to say the TLDR, if you don't want to watch the whole video, is that these are actually quite decent headphones, and I would recommend these for anyone looking for headphones in the $100 price range. They are pretty much exactly what I'm looking for. They're very close, as close as I think I'm going to get in a modern pair of headphones. Anyway, so they make a couple other Momentum branded headphones. They make an on-ear and an over-the-ear. This is the in-ear, which is, I think, definitely the cheapest. And I think they're supposed to sound similar, but I haven't heard the others, so I don't know how they compare, to be honest. So it comes in a version, because it's got this remote, it comes in both an Apple variant and an Android variant, which they call the Samsung Galaxy variant, because I don't know, Samsung pay them to do that? It almost feels like they did, but anyway, I have an LG G4. It works perfectly fine with that, so nothing weird going on there. So anyway, box is pretty standard. I just because I want to do this review, kind of like I did the last review, just so that they're sort of comparable. The specs on these are significantly better in terms of frequency response as compared to the Westones. These are 15 to 22 kilohertz, according to what they say. I can't hear that high, so I don't actually know. The sensitivity is actually pretty good, and I'll get more into that. And the impedance is 18 ohms, and I'll get into that as well. So anyway, you get the box, which is just a sleeve. It only opens on the bottom, by the way, which is very strange. They've got a little tab and everything for you to pull it out from the bottom, so I tried to open it from the top, and it doesn't work. It's glued and stuff. But they don't tell you that. You just get this little tiny bag with your extra large and I believe actually they call these large and the extra small ear tips. And you also get a little book, which is your manual. I'm not even going to bother to open this because it's completely useless. It's pretty much like, put it in your ear, plug it into your phone. Like, I don't know. And the headphones actually come packed in their case. This is basically it's a hard case with just fabric that's just been sort of glued on it, with a zipper that goes around the outside. And it's an okay case, except it's got this stupid insert in it, which really, I don't like this. Now, the nice part about it is that this comes out, and you don't need this insert. You can just throw your headphones in a ball and put them in here and zip them up, which is what I would do. The way they come packed is inside this thing, and the drivers go in here, your mic goes in here, the L-shaped plug goes here, and then they've got a place. This is where the other ear cups are. If you're wondering, it says 4 on the box. That's where the 4th set is, and I'm assuming you can just store maybe extras or like the next closest size to you. I don't really know why they put those there, because it's not like, they don't give you 2 of the same size. It's not like you can store backups there. And if one size fits you, why would you put another size there? I don't understand that. And I hope they don't expect you to take them off and put them there. I don't know. Anyway, this is really annoying because you've got to wind this thing in a certain way to get it on there. And the instructions did a really terrible job of explaining how to wind this, because they're all pictograms and stuff, and they're horribly drawn. So anyway, I would never take the time to wind this. Plus, it kind of gets stuck. So it was actually difficult for me to get this out when it was first packed. It's a little bit easier now, but it definitely gets caught on the lip of this fabric. So yeah, I would just use this if I was to use a case, but I am lazy and I don't use cases. But the case is okay. Compared to the Westone case, which was a hard sort of clamshell. This is this works. This works fine. I don't have any problems with the case. And then of course we got the headphones themselves, which is what everyone really cares about. So I'm going to be comparing these to the Wesstones just because, and the Giggis as well, just because those are the headphones I'm sort of using as reference. My hope is that if you've heard one of them, you can use my descriptions to sort of figure out what the other ones are like. That's sort of the point of this. The ultimate headphone reviews would be if one person listened to all headphones and compared them all in, using the same set of ears and the same criteria. Then you could easily be like, oh, well, I've heard those, so I know how those sound. But unfortunately, that's a perfect world, and no one's done that. So I'm using these 3 headphones, and that's it. So they have this kind of odd red and black cable from the splitter up, and then just a black solid cable from the splitter down. And it just says Momentum, which is embossed on one side, and then M2 IEG, which is just printed, looks like a silk screen or something, on the other side. It's not embossed or anything. And then we've just got this little, the plastic thing, which I still don't know what to call it, which you can pull up to your chin. And that actually has 2 separate holes, so it doesn't really go all the way down. It just kind of sits like there, and whatever. It's got a little Sennheiser logo and some sort of shiny plastic film on the front, so that's not really very durable, but whatever. The cable on this pair of headphones is kind of odd, and I might go into that. I'll go into that later, actually. Let's just do an overview first. So you have a remote, which is standard 3-button, volume up, volume down, answer, reject, call, next song, kind of thing. It just says Sennheiser on the back, and there's a microphone hole on the back. This remote works fine. I haven't tested the mic. I will probably never use the mic, so sorry about that. But the remote works fine. All the functionality works, except for the call stuff, because again, I don't answer calls with these in, so I don't know how that functionality works. But all the volume and the play, pause, and all that stuff in the next song, those all work. So again, it's going to depend on what phone you have. So that information is not really terribly important unless you have an LG G4, in which case this is compatible now. And this is on the right earphone, of course, which seems to be pretty common amongst manufacturers. And we've got the drivers themselves, and they have a very, very distinct shape to them. So they're designed to point to the front of your head, so that they can seal in your ear canal, and then the back of the earphone is sort of flush with or in the same plane as your head, so they don't look like they're sticking in. They actually fit pretty well, and they look okay. However, because of this design, you can't wear them over the ear. So, those people that like to put them in upside down and then hang it over the ear, just sort of like what the Wesstones were like, you can't really do that with this at all because it angles the wrong way and it won't go in your ear upside down. So the only way to do that would be if you flipped left and right, you could maybe try it. But because of the cable, you're probably not going to be able to. These are just the medium ear, they're just silicone tips that I've been using. They actually fit pretty well, so I never bothered to change them. I have yet to be able to determine whether the actual sound port is metal or plastic. I believe it is metal, but it really does look like plastic, but I believe it is metal. Because it whisks heat away from my finger just slightly. It doesn't have a lot of thermal mass, so it's very difficult to tell. And there's what looks like a little bit of black foam down in the end there to stop wax from getting in. But of course, unless you pick out the wax, it's just going to build up there, and it's gonna fail, just like the Iggy's did. The Iggy's I had to do surgery on. They had a metal grill inside, and you had to remove the grill and clean it and then put it back in. So these, once that foam gets kicked up, you're done. There's really not much you can do. The body is all plastic, of course. It's just shiny red plastic with a black plastic inside and sort of a metal decal stuck on the outside. And they've got this, I'm assuming it's an attempt at a strain relief, where the cable just goes through this hoop and down. It's not really a strain relief, in my opinion, but okay. I mean, I guess I don't really like that, to be honest. I would have preferred to have a proper silicone or rubber strain relief that extended out of the body and ignore this, but it's the way they did it. There's an R marked on this side for right, and there's 3 dimples on this side for left. So if you're in the dark, you can use your finger to feel which one is the left one, and the other one must be the right one at that point. Although, to be honest, the remote is, as long as you know the remote's on the right, R remote, right, it's easier. But of course, they only really go in one way, so you kind of can't screw these up. You try to put them the other way, they won't go in because they're angled the wrong way. So that's these, and then of course there's the plug, which is a 90-degree right angle, same as the Westone, same as the Iggy's are actually 45-degree angle, but this is an okay plug. I don't like the way that they did the strain relief on this. It looks like it's got this nice rubber strain relief on the back, but when you pull on the cable, it doesn't really move. This is really hard material. And it's significantly harder than the cable is, and it doesn't really get weaker as you go out. It just stops, which means the cable is going to fail right here. It's going to fail right there. And I've read reviews already that people say, I've owned this thing for a month and the cable has split open. Like, not even failed internally, but actually the sheath has physically split open right at this point, because this is not a strain relief. It looks like a strain relief. It's not. So be cautious when using these. The way I use headphones in my pocket is I plug them into my phone, and then to get the extra cable slack, to get rid of that, I basically create a loop in my pocket, and that loop is what creates the strain relief for this connector. That's probably why my Iggy's lasted 3.5 years, is simply because I did that. So I'm going to continue to do that with these, because I don't trust this. It's a very small plug. In just sheer size compared to the Westone. The Westone was quite wide. This one's very thin, and it's gold plated. Gold plating looks fine, as I'd expect. Now, I kept talking about the cable is weird in this, and the reason why I say that is this is wintertime in Canada, and it's cold outside. It's not incredibly cold. It was minus 10 Celsius today, which is not really that cold. I mean, it gets much colder here. But the interesting thing about this cable is it's very soft and silicone-y. It's not like the Westone cable that was really hard. And it's just like the Grado cable, the Iggy cable. It's very, very soft, very flexible. It's very limp, and of course it's flat. It's not like the Iggy cable or anything where there's 2 separate conductors. You can clearly see where they are, or 2 separate cables, because there's actually 4 wires in that. This has more than 4 wires because it has the remote. But you can't tell where the conductors are inside. It's just one sort of flat. It isn't round, but it isn't like flat like some of the designed headphones I've seen. This is just sort of like an oval shape basically. But it's very soft at room temperature, which is, of course, what it is here. It's about 22 or something in this room right now. When this gets cold, it solidifies. It's very surprising how solid this stuff gets. So when it's minus 10 outside, the cable becomes pretty much a solid. So I always wear my headphones on the outside of my coat. So they run from my head down to my pocket, and that basically becomes a solid mass that moves as one solid mass as I move my head, and with every step. So the cable noise is pretty ridiculous because that whole thing is slamming into my coat every step I take. And of course, because you can't wear these things over the ear, you're going to hear that cable noise, and there's not much you can do about it. And it's difficult because when you turn your head and stuff, the cable doesn't want to move. The cable wants to stay rigid, and it actually pulls these out of your ears. It's very odd. Whatever particular type of silicone they've made this out of does not tolerate low temperatures very well. And just to give you an idea of how stiff they become, I sort of did the thing that everyone does when they're bored, and you take the tape measure and you kind of keep extending it to see how far you can get it before it snaps. Well, I kind of did that with this. The cable doesn't snap. I'll let you know, it doesn't get like brittle, like to the point where it's gonna break. like, what happens when you put something under liquid nitrogen. It's not that kind of thing. It just becomes far more rigid, and it really doesn't want to bend. And I was able to extend the headphones maybe about, this far or so, and they would stay pretty much straight before they would start to droop down. To be able to support that much weight like that just tells you how rigid the cable gets when it's cold. So if you live in a cold climate, just keep that in mind. That's not something I've seen mentioned anywhere else. So of course, how is the noise isolation and how do they sound? So noise isolation is actually pretty good. I would say it's on par with the Westtones, if not maybe a little bit better, because you can position these things a little bit better than those because they have the molded over ear thing. This you can just kind of put in whichever angle you want. So if you got a weird shaped ear, you can get a better seal. So noise isolation, I have no issues with that at all. In terms of how easy they are to drive, these are 18 ohms and they are quite easy to drive. They're not as easy as the Westtones. They do require a little tiny bit more power, probably so little you won't notice, but it is there. But again, they're really sensitive compared to a lot of other headphones. So you don't need an amp with these or anything like that. They're very good on that front, and they don't have any oscillation issues like the Westtones did. So I can plug these into every DAC that I own, and it doesn't matter what it is. You can't hear any buzzing, hissing, no oscillation noises whatsoever, like you'd expect out of professional grade audio equipment. So the Westtones were very odd in that respect. Now they were 24 ohms. They were 16 ohms. These are 18 ohms. So their impedances are very close. So if it was an oscillation issue, it was very, it was just a very rare occurrence, I guess, matching those two things together. But these don't have any issues like that. So then there's, of course, the how do they sound. That's the thing that everyone wants to know. And I kind of apologize for rambling on so much before I get to this point. But these have a very similar sound curve to that of the Iggy's. It's not at all what the Westtones had. Like I said, the reason why I returned the Westtones is because they had sort of the complete opposite sound curve of what I was looking for. And these have very close to what I was looking for. So it is sort of V-shaped, definitely V-shaped. The low end is my only real complaint about these headphones. Sennheiser is kind of going for that, appealing to the younger generations that want all that bass and all that oomph in their headphones. And these definitely have an enhanced bass response, significantly enhanced. Not as bad as like the CX302s that I tried from Sennheiser a while back, which were absolutely insane. These are less than that, but they are definitely still amplifying the low end quite a bit. It's to the point where you can get used to it after a few days and kind of block it out. But when you first put these in, like I got a headache from just the constant droning, the constant rumbling noise from the low end that's just way over accentuated. It doesn't need to be that loud. I mean, when you have a song that doesn't have really any low end, it kind of does add body. It makes it sound good, and I understand why Sennheiser is doing this. But when you have a song that's dance music or something that's designed to have a beat, and you put it through these, it's ridiculous. And that's something that you sort of do want to keep in mind. Of course, it's very easy to EQ that out. You just take whatever you've got, whatever the lowest couple bands are. You may want to drop those by a couple dB. It's very easy to EQ out, but just be aware that it does have it. It's not to the point where it will sort of drown out everything else, like some other headphones I've tried. It's just at the boundary where I would say, that's enough. Stop, no more bass. But it's okay, and it's something that I can live with even without EQ. Whereas the Westtones, you couldn't use them without an EQ, in my opinion. These are okay. So that's the low end. The mid-range is definitely depressed a bit with these headphones. I can't actually tell how much, but I would say the mids are depressed relative to the other ends. Probably it's probably relatively flat. I would say it's relatively flat throughout the whole mids, and they've just simply accentuated the highs and the lows. So the highs are very, very solid. There isn't really any sibilance. There isn't really any issues with high frequency sounds making, just sounding bad. They're not piercing, nothing like that. Nothing at all like the Westtones. These are very, very, they're the fun kind of sound that I was looking for. They are accentuated to some extent, and I think the reason why they do that is to increase the soundstage, and the soundstage is very good on these. It's difficult for me to compare these to the Iggy's because I haven't heard the Iggy's in a while because they broke a while ago, but I would say that it's on par almost exactly with the Iggy's for soundstage, and it's significantly better than that of the Westone soundstage. So these, for an in-ear headphone, the soundstage is actually really good. So you have nothing really to worry about there, and it's not. It doesn't appear that they're the sort of augmentation in the sound that the Iggy's did with the the whole 10 kilohertz peak and everything doesn't appear to be as pronounced in these. So if you were just moving to these from something that didn't try to do soundstage enlargement, you probably wouldn't have as sharp a transition, and you probably wouldn't have to get used to these as much. But it's difficult for me to say because I haven't heard sort of the headphones that don't have that kind of have this V curve in a while. But it definitely does have enhanced highs and enhanced lows, and the mids are relatively flat over that whole range. Honestly, other than the fact that the cable is a bit odd, and I definitely think that it's going to fail due to due to the conductors breaking, just due to the lack of strain relief. Other than the fact that the build quality on the cable is not terribly great, the rest of the headphones I have nothing wrong with. They are, in my opinion, probably one of the best headphones you could get in that $100 range from what I've seen. And now that I've experienced them, I can say that, they probably are one of the best in that range, because all the things that I've read are true. So I've confirmed it. I do think that these are quite a good contender in that range. So I'm not going to be returning these. So this is the last headphone review I'm going to do for a while, because hopefully these don't fail after a month like some of the people claim has happened. And if that happens, I'll try to get them replaced, but we'll see how that goes. I'm just not even going to think about that. I'm just going to assume that they're going to be fine and everything's going to be all hunky-dory. So I don't really think there's anything else to say about these other than what I've already talked about. So I think I'll stop rambling now. So hopefully that was useful to someone. Thanks for watching.